You're standing at your back door right now, looking out at a yard where the neighbor can see everything you do. The deck, the patio table, that spot where you drink your coffee, and you've been told the only fix is a 6-foot fence and a permission slip from your HOA. That's a lie. I've watched homeowners spend $3,000, $4,000 building privacy. They could have faked for under $30 with a cart from the dollar store, and nobody in my trade will tell you that because there's no profit in it for us. I've spent decades in the truck, walking yards, quoting fences, ripping out the ones that rotted, and I'll tell you straight, the cheapest privacy tricks I've ever seen also happen to look the most expensive. Stick with me, because the number one trick at the end of this, the one I learned the hard way after botching my own backyard, costs almost nothing and needs zero approval, and it's the single thing that separates a yard that feels enclosed from one that feels exposed. Whether you're planning to sit in that yard for the next 20 years or list the house next spring, this is the part they never taught you. Let me start at the bottom of the list and work up, because the last one is the one you'll wish you'd known 10 years ago. So let's talk about the thing almost everybody reaches for first, and the thing almost everybody gets slightly wrong. Faux greenery, the artificial ivy, the boxwood mats, the leafy panels you can grab at the dollar store for $1.25 a piece. Now here's the setup. Most folks buy 3 or 4 of these, zip tie them to a chain link fence, step back, and feel a little let down. It looks like exactly what it is. Cheap plastic stapled to a fence. But here's what I learned watching a homeowner outside a house I was quoting years back. She hadn't spread hers thin. She doubled them up. She overlapped the panels so there were no gaps of fence showing through, and she'd mixed 2 slightly different shades of green instead of buying all the same pack. That's the whole secret. Real foliage is never one flat color. When you overlap and vary the tone, your eye reads it as a living hedge instead of a plastic mat. The difference between looking cheap and looking custom was maybe $8 extra of product and 15 minutes of layering. The number that matters here, a real privacy hedge, professionally installed, runs you anywhere from $40 to $120 per linear foot. Once you count the plants, the labor, and the years of waiting for it to fill in, a wall of arborvitae for a modest backyard can hit $2,000, $3,000 easy, and you're staring at bare stalks for 3 growing seasons before it does its job. The faux panel wall does the job the same afternoon you hang it for the price of a fast food lunch. Now, is faux greenery going to fool a home appraiser into adding value? No. Be honest with yourself. This one is for you, the person living there, the person who wants to eat dinner outside without the guy next door studying the plate. It reads great from 10 feet away, which is exactly the distance your neighbor is standing. But, and this is why greenery is only number 5 on my list, plastic fades. Cheap faux ivy that sits in direct southern sun will bleach out to a sad pale gray in a couple summers, and faded fake plants look worse than no plants at all. So if you go this route, hang it where it gets some afternoon shade, or accept you'll be replacing it every 2 years. And that fading problem is exactly why the next trick beats it, because the next one actually gets better with time instead of worse. Here's number 4. And this is the one I see people completely sleep on: outdoor curtains. Not the $80 canvas panels from the patio catalog. I mean fabric shower curtains and outdoor tablecloths from the dollar store, hung on a line of cheap tension rods or a length of PVC pipe. Let me paint you the setup, because this is where it gets good. You've got a patio or a pergola, or even just a couple of posts on the corner of a deck. Right now it's open on every side, and it feels like a stage. You string a rod across the open side, you hang 3 or 4 fabric panels, and suddenly you've got a room, an outdoor room. The wind catches them, they move, they soften the whole space, and here's the part that gets me every time. That gentle movement is the exact thing luxury resorts pay designers thousands to recreate. A cabana, a private corner. You just built the feeling of one for under $15. The insider detail nobody mentions. Wait, the bottom hem. A curtain that flaps around in every breeze and wraps itself around the rod looks chaotic and cheap. Slide a length of chain into the bottom hem, or clip a couple of cheap curtain weights, or even sew in a row of large washers. Now the fabric hangs with a clean vertical line and moves slow, like heavy linen. That one trick waiting the hem is the difference between college dorm balcony and boutique hotel. And here's why this beats the faux greenery on my list. Curtains do double duty. They block the sightline when they're closed, and they tie back when you want the view. Greenery is permanent. Curtains give you control. On top of that, the right color fabric go with a warm neutral, an oatmeal, a soft white, a muted terracotta. Never allowed pattern reads as intentional design, and intentional design is the thing buyers pay for. Speaking of buyers, let me hit you with a number, because I promised you real ones. The National Association of Realtors, in its outdoor living research, has repeatedly found that defined, usable outdoor spaces are among the features buyers list as most desirable, and staged outdoor rooms consistently help homes photograph better and move faster. A patio that photographs like a private retreat pulls clicks online. A patio that photographs like a bare concrete slab with a plastic chair on it gets scrolled past. You are not just buying privacy with those curtains, you're buying a better listing photo. But curtains and greenery share a weakness, and it's a big one, and it's why they're both down at the bottom of this countdown. They're flat, they're two-dimensional, they screen a line of sight, but they don't create depth. And depth is what makes a yard read as expensive. Which brings me to number 3, where we finally start building in 3 dimensions. Number 3 is the potted plant cluster, and I need you to throw out everything you think you know about it, because the way most people do this is exactly why it looks cheap. Here's the mistake I see in 9 out of 10 yards. One plant, one pot, sitting alone in the middle of a patio like it got lost on the way to somewhere. A single potted plant looks like an afterthought. It actually makes the space feel emptier, not fuller. The dollar store sells planters, and they sell them in a range of sizes, and here's the play. You buy pots in 3 different heights. You cluster them. You never, ever space them out evenly like soldiers. You group them tight. Odd numbers, 3s and 5s, tallest in the back, shortest in front, staggered so they overlap. That staggered cluster is what your eye reads as a lush, layered, designed garden. It's the exact technique high-end landscape designers use, and it's the exact thing they charge you a design fee to plan out. Now, here's how you get the height for privacy on the cheap. Because a $2 planter isn't tall enough to block anybody. You raise them, flip a cheap bucket or a milk crate upside down, set the pot on top, and hide the base behind the shorter pots in front. Instant elevation. A cluster staged like this against the open side of a deck can throw a 5-6 foot screen of green right where you need it, and it costs a fraction of what a single nursery specimen tree would run you. For the plants themselves, and this is where the dollar store surprises people, you don't need to buy mature plants at all. You buy the pots there, you buy fast-growing seeds or cheap starter cuttings, and you let them fill in. Ornamental grasses are the cheat code here. They're forgiving, they grow fast, they move in the wind like the curtains do, and a tall grass in a raised pot gives you a soft, swaying privacy screen that looks like money. A clump of tall grass staged right will make a stranger think you hired somebody. Here's the resale angle, and it's a real one. Clemson University's Extension Service and several land grant horticulture programs have put out research showing that quality landscaping can return anywhere from 100% to over 200% of what you put into it, and that a well-landscaped home can command a price premium in the range of 5 to 12% over a comparable bare yard home. Sit with that. On a $300,000 house, the low end of that premium is $15,000. The pots cost you $40 total. I've never seen a return like that anywhere else in this trade. But even a beautiful pot cluster has a problem that keeps it at number 3, and it's the same enemy that kills every cheap yard upgrade eventually. Neglect shows. A pot with a dead plant in it, or a cracked plastic planter faded gray by the sun, drags the whole yard down faster than having nothing there at all. And that leads me straight into number 2, because number 2 is the fix that makes everything else you've done look twice as expensive, and it turns on the exact moment your neighbor is most likely to be watching you. Number 2 is light. Specifically, dollar store solar lights and specifically the way you place them, because placement is everything and almost everybody places them wrong. Let me set this up with a confession. When I started out, I thought outdoor lighting was about brightness. Line the path, flood the yard, make it look like a parking lot. Wrong. Dead wrong. And I watched a homeowner teach me better on a walkthrough one evening. She had maybe a dozen of those little solar stake lights, the ones that cost $1 and change a piece, and she hadn't lined her path with them at all. She'd pushed them down low into her planting beds and aimed them up, so they threw light up through the leaves of her plants and up the posts of her fence. That's called uplighting, and it is the single most expensive looking thing you can do to a yard for $1 a light. When you light a plant from below, you get shadows, you get texture, you get drama. The fence stops being a flat wall and becomes a warm, layered backdrop. And here's the privacy connection people miss entirely. A yard that's beautifully lit from within pulls all the attention inward. Nobody outside your fence is looking past a soft glow into a dark yard. The light gives you a psychological wall. You feel enclosed, cozy, wrapped up, even in an open space. The trick with the cheap solar lights is which ones to buy. Skip the cool blue-white ones. They read as harsh and cheap and industrial, like a gas station. Buy the warm white ones, the ones that glow amber and gold. Warm light says expensive restaurant patio. Cold light says prison yard. Same price, completely different world. If your dollar store only carries the cold ones, there's a fix, a thin layer of amber tinted film, or even a light coat of the right shade of nail polish over the little solar panel's bulb, warms them right up, sounds fussy, takes 10 minutes. Changes everything. Now here's the number that should make you sit up. A professional, low voltage, landscape lighting system, the transformer, the wiring, the fixtures, the labor to trench it all in, runs most homeowners anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000. And I've quoted plenty north of that. The dollar store version, 20 warm solar lights, is under $30 and installs in an afternoon with no wiring, no electrician, no permit, and pay attention, no HOA approval, because there's nothing permanent, nothing attached to the structure, nothing they can point at. And that word approval is where I need to stop and tell you something that's been bothering me for a long time. Everything I've listed so far, the greenery, the curtains, the pots, the lights, every single one of them is freestanding, temporary, and reversible. And that is not an accident. That is the entire loophole. Your HOA's rules and your city's permit requirements almost always hinge on two words: permanent structures. The second you sink a post in concrete or bolt something to the house, you're in their world, filling out forms, waiting weeks, paying fees, and getting told no. But a potted plant, a curtain on a tension rod, a solar light stuck in a flower bed, there is nothing for them to approve because you haven't built anything. You've furnished your yard the way you'd furnish a living room, and nobody needs a permit to move a couch. Here's the part that ought to make you a little angry. The fence company, the deck builder, the landscaper, and I've been that guy in the truck, we quote you the permanent solution first, because the permanent solution is where the money is. Nobody's getting rich telling you to buy $12 of curtains and a bag of solar stakes. The high margin job is the $4,000 fence that needs the permit, the survey, the approval, and the crew. There's a whole chain of people who profit from you believing that privacy has to be permanent, expensive, and approved. It doesn't. It never did. If you want all of this mapped out in one place, the angles, the placement rules, the exact combinations that work by yard type, I put it together in a digital guide called the Yard System, which is part of a set that also includes First Look and Yard Elevated. It's $97, and the link is in the description at curbappealinsider.com. I wrote it for the homeowner who's done wasting money on the wrong solution in the wrong spot, and everything in it is the same straight talk you're getting right here. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right about now. You're thinking this whole video is for people playing pretend with dollar store crafts, and you've got a real budget and real problems, and none of this applies to you. I want you to stay right here, because this next stretch is the one that matters most for you specifically, whether you're spending a fortune or spending nothing, whether you're staying put or selling in 90 days. Here's the truth that cuts across every budget. The single most valuable thing you can do for a private feeling yard doesn't cost more when you're rich and doesn't cost less when you're broke. It costs the same for everybody because it's not a product at all. It's knowing where to put the thing you already bought. A homeowner who spends $4,000 on a fence in the wrong place gets a worse result than a homeowner who spends $30 on a screen in exactly the right spot. I have watched that exact scenario play out more times than I can count. If you're selling, here's your version. You don't need to enclose the entire yard. Buyers walking through a home decide how a backyard feels in about the first 15 seconds, standing at the back door or on the deck looking out. That's the money angle. That's the only sightline that matters for the sale. You stage privacy and warmth on that one view, the view from the door and the view from the main patio, and the buyer's brain fills in the rest. A cluster of pots, a run of curtains, and warm lights aimed at that one hero sightline will do more for your listing than a full perimeter fence that nobody notices in the photos. If you're staying, here's your version. Sit down, actually go sit in a chair where you drink your coffee, where you eat dinner, where you'd relax if you felt like you could, and notice exactly where the exposure hits you. It's almost never the whole yard. It's one window next door. One gap in the fence, one angle where the street sees in. You solve that one spot and the entire yard flips from exposed to private. Same principle, whether your budget is $30 or $3,000. Buy less, place it smarter. And that placement over product is exactly what leads me to number one. Because number one isn't a thing you buy at all. It's the reason the cheap stuff works and the expensive stuff sometimes doesn't. And it's the thing I got completely wrong in my own backyard for years before I figured it out. Here's number one. Privacy is about angles, not walls. And once you understand the angle, you stop paying for the wall. Let me tell you how I learned this, because it cost me real money and real embarrassment. Years back, my own backyard backed up to a 2-story house behind me. From my patio, I felt watched, so I did what my whole trade trained me to do. I built a taller fence, 6 feet. Then I added lattice on top to push it towards 7. Cost me a good chunk of a weekend and a good chunk of cash. And I sat down in my chair, looked up, and there was the 2nd-story window still staring right down at me because the neighbor wasn't looking at me through the fence. They were looking down over the top of it. My wall did nothing about the angle. I'd spent money solving the wrong problem entirely. Here's what actually works, and it's so simple you'll be annoyed nobody told you. Privacy is a line between 2 points, their eye and your body. You don't have to block the whole space between you. You only have to break that one line, and you can break it anywhere along its length, which means you can break it right next to your own chair instead of way out at the property line. A small screen placed close to where you sit blocks the exact same sight line that would take a massive wall to block out at the fence. Closer to you, smaller and cheaper the screen needs to be. It's just geometry. Hold your hand up a few inches from your face and it blocks a whole mountain. Hold it out at arm's length and it blocks almost nothing. Same hand. So here's how you actually use this, and this is the part you can do this weekend. You go sit in your spot. You have somebody stand or sit exactly where the intrusion comes from, the neighbor's deck, the upstairs window, the street. Now you literally trace the line between their eyes and yours. Then you place your screen, a tall potted grass, a curtain panel, a cluster of raised pots right up close to you, breaking that single line at the cheapest, smallest point. One tall plant next to your chair can erase a 2nd-story window that a 7-foot fence couldn't touch. I proved it in my own yard after I wasted the money on the fence. A single big potted grass set 3 feet from my chair and raised on a crate killed that window's view completely. Total cost under $15. My fence cost me hundreds and did less. And here's the layer that makes this the number one insight in the whole video. When you place your screen close to you instead of at the perimeter, you also get depth. Your eye has the plant up close, the yard in the middle, the fence in the distance, near, middle, far. That layering is the exact thing that makes a yard read as designed, as lush, as expensive. The faraway wall gives you a flat backdrop and nothing else. The close-up screen gives you privacy and depth and drama, all from one cheap object in the right spot. The pros know this. It's in every landscape design principle about foreground, midground, and background, but it never gets explained to the homeowner as what it really is, the cheat code that lets you skip the wall. This is why the whole trade quietly steers you toward the perimeter fence. The fence is expensive, it's permanent, it needs approval, and it's where our money is. Almost nobody in my business is going to walk your yard and say, you know what? Don't build the fence, go buy one tall plant at the dollar store and set it next to your chair. But that's the honest answer more often than you'd ever believe, and now you have it for the price of nothing. So let me pull it all together, because you came here thinking you needed permission and a construction budget to feel private in your own backyard, and the truth is, you needed neither. You dodged a fence quote that could have run into the thousands, and you can start fixing the actual problem this weekend with a cart from the dollar store and the geometry you just learned. If you're the kind of homeowner who'd rather hear the blunt truth from the guy in the truck than get upsold a permit and a $4,000 wall you don't need, then you already know the difference between spending money and spending it smart. That's who this channel is for. Now do me a favor, because I actually want to know, out of everything we covered, the layered faux greenery, the weighted curtains, the raised pot clusters, the warm uplighting, and that #1 angle trick that made my own fence pointless, tell me which one you're guilty of getting wrong until today, or which one you're about to go try. Drop it in the comments below, and tell me what part of the world you're watching from while you're at it. I read them, and I answer. And if you want to stand with the homeowners who refuse to get fleeced on their own property, the ones who'd rather know the trick than pay for the wall, subscribe and stick around. Because next time I'm breaking down the 3 so-called upgrades I see homeowners add to their yards that actually drop the resale value, and the very first one is something you probably installed on purpose because you thought it looked nice. You're going to want to hear which one that is before your next buyer sees it. You've made it to the very end with me, so let me tell you where I keep the rest. This video gave you the overview inside the curb appeal circle. I pick up right where we stopped. Ask me your own question, and a real person answers you, me, not a bot. You'd belong among homeowners like you. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, cancel anytime, one click. Now that your yard feels private, let me show you how to make it look truly expensive without spending much at all. Those 10 easy tricks are starting right here, so stay with me and keep watching.